Hi, happy Tuesday. Second video, staying true to my word. My only worry is that my camera's gonna die. I'm gonna have to finish on my phone, which is fine, but the quality just usually isn't as good. So hi, welcome to Carlie Styles. Please watch the video linked down below my description. If you're just seeing this for the first time, you're like, wait, Carlie's back. She's back on YouTube. It's just been a minute since I've uploaded, but I've been wanting to do more of these, like, hold on, my lens looks dirty and I can't stand that. Kids, I swear, kids. They get a hold of my camera and they're like, I need to focus. Reel it in. I've been wanting to do more of these like podcast feeling vlogs where I'm gonna do my makeup or something and we're just gonna get ready together and chat and catch up for the week. I've got 3 questions that I'm answering from last week's video. The theme feels very like parenting and advice on parenting, roles in the home, being a young mom, and what that all feels like. And so we're gonna go over those today, but I'm gonna get ready. I will link the products I'm using down in the description below. I feel like one of these videos, maybe we'll just talk about makeup and make it more lighter. But today I'm just gonna get ready. And so products will be linked down below. The video from last week will also be linked down below. Put this on while you're doing laundry, while you're doing your dishes, while you're on a run, whatever. Make it feel like a podcast, like we're just chatting, we're hanging out. I'm gonna film every Monday. Please upload on Tuesday. If you have any submissions for like what you want to talk about, leave it down in the comments below. This past week was really crazy. We had a funeral, which was really hard and beautiful. It was just a really beautiful tribute to Jackson's grandfather's life. One of those funerals that you go to and it just is like, wow, he was an incredible man. Like, I need to be a better person. Like, I can step up who I am in life. You know what I'm saying? Like, he just was so amazing that it just makes you want to be better. So I thought it was a beautiful like attribute to have a funeral like that. You know, like that's what we all hope and dream for. Like when we leave this earth, are we going to be proud of like the legacy we left behind? And I definitely think Grandpa Holmes, you can do that. So many people loved you. So we had that. It was Elliot's birthday. He turned 7. We had a birthday party for Elliot. We had the funeral. We also blessed my youngest, Max. We had her big baby blessing at church. And so we literally had like 2 get-togethers, a funeral. Like, it was just a lot. This week was a lot. Everyone's like, how are you doing? Are you okay? You just like are nonstop. And I'm like, I kind of think that like an object in motion just stays in motion, and it's kind of good for me. But my toxic trait is like, I would love to just be a lazy person if I could. Like, it is so tempting for me every day just to want to lay around and watch shows and do laundry. But when you have 5 kids and a lot of responsibilities and big dreams, you ain't got that. You ain't got that choice. Let's get on with the show. Okay, so the first question, it's a little bit lighter than the others. I would love a chatty episode about how you manage the division of labor in your house and how you and Jackson communicate about your roles inside of the house. Big love from Australia. Love you down under. One day I'm gonna come to Australia. Oh, here's the thing, like being in a relationship where you're sharing responsibilities, I like to think of it as like an ever-changing thing. Especially with us, this is just what has worked for us. Our jobs, like I've been an entrepreneur since Jackson and I got married. And so my schedule has like always felt very free. But also like I have something to do every single day, what it feels like. And his job has changed in the sense where when we got married, he was in a very strict, like had to show up to work every single day at like 8 o'clock, 8:30. And the day would depend on how many clients he would see. Sometimes he'd get home at 7 o'clock at night. Sometimes he'd get home at 5 o'clock at night. And that was like the first 2 or 3 years of our marriage. And that was really, really hard because I was just basically, you know, fulfilling the responsibilities of the home, yard, like the kids alone. But it was good because that's how Jackson really built up his business. And so for those younger couples in the beginning stages of like building up your careers and like figuring things out, it's really challenging. And I see you and I feel you, and just hang in there, you'll get through it. But for Jackson and I, we never really had like clear defined roles, as in like I'm the homemaker, he is the income breadwinner, because I, for a while, was like the breadwinner for the family, because Jackson moved up from Utah when we got married. He basically had to start over in like his career at a new firm and finding new clients. And so we just like were really good about, not always really good, but we tried to do our best about communicating and just like, this is what I'm needing. There were so many days where I would just break down to him and I was like, I need help. Like, I know you work so much, but like, I really just need a day to work when I'm not trying to manage children and like have an opportunity just to have like quiet work time. Being an entrepreneur is the most amazing, incredible blessing, but it's so hard because when you're doing it from the home with your kids around, it just never really feels like you get like focused time to like completely just turn kids off, mom mode off, and like turn work mode on. I knew that that was kind of like, you know, what it meant when I was an entrepreneur, and I would much rather have to deal with that burden than just like taking my kids to daycare or like, you know, having help, just because that's where we're at. It doesn't work for everybody. That's what we love. So anyways, the roles in the home, the best news is like you can change. Things can change as the cycles of life change, right? Like we never once, for us, it didn't work for us to be like, okay, you're going to be the breadwinner, you're going to be the stay-at-home mom or dad or whatever. We just kind of were like, okay, this is where we're at. This is what works for us right now. Let's give this a try. And like through trial and error, a lot of arguments, you guys, a lot of meltdowns, we were able to kind of find our best flow and like also learn each other's like buttons, right? So for me, I'm a very anxious person about the home. I actually would love to have another episode about this, but like there's just something about living in chaos and mess and unorganized things that makes it very hard for me to like function. And I hate that about myself because I clearly can like talk myself through like, Carlie, this is something you can pick up at the end of the night. This isn't how the home's gonna look forever. Like it's something I can talk myself essentially off the ledge of, but in the moment, it's really hard for me. And I've come a long way with that. So Jackson has learned that, and me communicating with him like, hey, like this is really important to me. We've had to learn each other's like what works for each other, and I've had to learn that like Jackson doesn't love when I give him like a to-do list essentially, and it's kind of like a funny something that we laugh about now in our marriage, how like one time he's like, I don't want you to give me a to-do list, and so then one time we were fighting, he's like, I can't read your brain, I need you to write things down for me. And so then I was like, well, I don't want to give you a to-do list. And now we fight about it now we laugh about it because in the moment, you know how this goes, like it was so important, the fight was so important, and we were both so worked up about it, and now we can just like laugh about it because we were just both being so like, you know, in the fight it feels so intense, and then like when you've stepped back and taken a breath, you're like, it really wasn't that important. That's another key to marriage, is like learning to laugh through the small things. Usually you're sleep deprived, you're stressed out about something else, and you're rarely fighting about what you're fighting about, you know? So anyways, this is like a ramble. Learn to let things change, learn to let things go, learn to try different things. Like Jackson now has become, I feel like, the chef of the home. He's a really, really good cook, and that has taken a lot of pressure off of me because I don't mind cooking. Like I like doing it, but it gives me this anxious feeling of like, I always feel like it's gonna take so much longer than it needs to, and it has to be this big thing. And in my mind, that's like, I have no patience for that. But I really like cleaning, so I'm great about cleaning up after the mess. So like that has flipped for us, because in the beginning I felt like I needed to cook, like be the main source of like cooking family dinners and stuff. It works out better for us now that he's the cook. Does that make sense? And I'm the cleaner. Biggest advice for you, roles in the home: try new things, go with the flow, make sure you really communicate what's important to you, what you're needing, what makes you feel better, and do your best. I don't know if I completely answered that. I'm sure after I'm done editing or uploading this, I'm gonna have more thoughts on that. So check the comments below because I might come back to more thoughts on that. Okay, this one is kind of intense. How it felt being a young mom plus teen pregnancy compared to now, shade cards, and being part of all of that. relationships and finding Jackson and all of that would be so interesting. So this could be an entire episode. So if you're new here, I was previously married to Cooper's dad, and I was a young mom. I had Cooper when I was 20 years old, and Cooper's dad and I had been together since I was like 18, basically in college. He was like my first real boyfriend, real boyfriend. And we were together 2 years before we had Cooper. That 2 years was really rocky. And like looking back, I just wish that so many, like I kind of talked about this in the last episode, but I wish that I could have been like, Carlie, you're just really young. Like if I had one wish for my kids, it would be not to get married that young at all. Like not to even like think or consider getting married until you're in your 20s. I know like later 20s, 25 plus after college. I know a lot of people do have gotten married that young and it's worked for them, but like I just think like I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted. I was just fresh out of high school. I was trying to figure out like where I wanted to go in life, you know, just like all of that maturing needed to happen. I was so young. Cooper's dad was in the he was like he was trying to figure out his career and like what he wanted to do with his career. He was also battling addiction. He talks very openly about that, and he was just, you know, we were both in a place where we were not meant to get married. I do think that we had a love, and when we dated, I do feel like I loved him in the way that I felt like that was love. We were very toxic for each other. I just don't like, even now we laugh about it because we just are not compatible in that sense of like, we just are very different people, and that's a great thing. I think that's one of the best things about Cooper is it has made him who he is, because Christian and I are so different. But it was very hard, like being in a small town, coming from a Mormon background, like, you know, getting pregnant before you're married, just I felt so much shame. I felt so unworthy. I felt so like an outcast, like the Scarlet Letter. I felt like I had to justify my worth, and I had to like make up for the big mistake of like getting pregnant, you know, and that like makes me want to choke on that, because being where I'm at now, because like Cooper was the best thing that ever happened to me. Like I can't imagine a life without him. Fortunately, like I was in a place where I was ready to take that on, and I know that like some women aren't when you get pregnant young, and I'm very sorry that you have to make like those hard decisions. But for me, it was never not an option to have him. I just knew I was meant to be his mom, and I knew that in that moment like I was supposed to be a mom. I know that's not everyone's situation or everyone's case, but I was grateful that I was like, okay, like this is where my life's at going. This was what I meant to do. I'm gonna be a mom. Won't lie, it was hard because I was at like my second year in college and I was still cheering, and that was like my dream. Like I just thought that I was gonna go so much further with like cheerleading and like dancing professionally, and just like where that road could have taken me. And so that chapter, I think, always feel like closed before I was ready to like essentially close it. But like having a daughter now and like seeing Cooper thrive in his life and seeing like my girls like dance, and it just kind of has healed that part for me of like missing that part of my life, and just helping me to focus on like such a greater purpose, which is like being a mom to them. And so yeah, it was hard. I felt compared, like I was like the black egg essentially in my family, because you know I did things out of order, but like I would never change it because it made me who I am. It made me appreciate and value the marriage that I have now. I have such a different outlook on like religion and like how God sees us and accepts us and loves us, and like giving myself more grace has been a lot easier now, and like learning to not judge others as harshly because of things I've gone through. It's helped me with that. I don't know. It just definitely like your mistakes in life can either like run you and like shake you and define you, or they can like teach you like your greatest lessons. And I feel like that's what it was for me. But I won't lie, in the midst of going through it all, it was really freaking hard, and sometimes I wonder how I got through. So to lightly touch on that without saying too much or too little, like I said, there's so much more I could say about that. I guess my advice would be, if you are in that situation, just really try to listen to yourself. Like, there's going to be so much advice given to you because you are young, and people are going to treat you like that. People are going to treat you like, well, you're so young, you don't know what you want. But in all reality, like, learn to trust your intuition, learn to trust your gut, and just do your very best. And like, realize that this is just a year of your life. It's not your entire life. It's not your entire identity. It's just something you're going through, and you're going to get through it. And it's could be the best thing that's ever happened to you. And you get to decide how you're going to come out on the other side of that. Okay, last one. I'd love to hear parenting advice within a marriage. My husband and I were raised differently, so both have different ideas and expectations for our kids' childhoods and our kids' behavior. I would love to hear your thoughts on all growing together as a family and balancing your own hopes and visions with the realities of equal partnership in parenting. That is such a good question. Oh my gosh, I love that question. Also, very difficult situation, because when you have different expectations, or like you want different outcomes for your kids, there might be different pathways to getting there. But I think, like, ultimately, if there's love and respect there, it can be achieved. So my advice would be to sit down as a couple first and foremost, and to like outline your goals as a family. Like, what are your goals as a family? Like, what are you hoping to achieve as a family? What's important to you as a family unit? Not like what's important to just mom or what's important to just dad, but like as a family unit, what's like what's your end game? What's your end goal? And then like I would try to like work backwards. Like, how are you going to get to that end goal with both of you having different ideas in mind of how you're going to get there? Because I do think it's going to take some compromise. I do think it's going to take a little of you both giving and taking, right? I think if you guys keep love at the center focus of where you want to end up, and like what's the most important thing for all of you, you'll be able to clearly, maybe not clearly, but you'll be able to come up with a path for everyone to get there. But that is very difficult, and I think that that is something that can make people feel like not compatible in parenting together. But I definitely think that like if you love each other and if you respect each other and you came together for a reason, I do think and it can be achieved. I would also write down like what worked for you, as in like what you loved about your parents and what they did for you, and what didn't work for you. And see if you have any, like, my mascara on my eyelid. See if there's any commonalities. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why, but religion is coming to mind, as in, like, if you were raised in different religious households, that can be really difficult. That's how it was for me in my first marriage. Like, I was Mormon, he was not. And it was hard. It was hard because things that were important to me, he didn't think were a big deal. As like, I get that. Like, if you weren't raised that way, why would you care about that? So I would definitely sit down and be like, hey, these are the things that are important to me. This is what my parents did with me that I loved. These are things that my parents did with me that I didn't love. Like, is there anything that you can agree with me on that we can use to move forward? I think that taking a step back and being like, okay, let me hear him out, let me hear her out, let me respect their wishes, like what can we do to work together as a team, is going to be the most important. Because you're both gonna, it just sounds like because you both have different thoughts, right? You're gonna get, I don't want to say you're gonna arrive at different places, but it's definitely gonna be one of those things where you're gonna have to leave some things behind and maybe take on some new ideas and beliefs that you weren't planning on. I think I got through all the questions. Okay, so to end this episode, I need a piece of toilet paper, which my camera is also sitting on right now. I wanted just to end with some advice of just things that I'm feeling this week. I wanted to remind you, I talked about this in last week's episode, but I just keep feeling like I need to talk about it. Life is like this ever-changing thing. I think sometimes we get really caught up in the moment of like, these are being so important to us right this second. Sometimes you just need to take a sleep and like let a day go by, let your head hit the pillow, get up the next day and reevaluate, and maybe that thing isn't as important to you. I've been going through just like a couple things that like have felt so important in the very second that I'm going through them. And then the next day I'm like, oh, I just needed to sleep and like give it some time, let it marinate, and I feel a lot better about it. We don't need to take life as seriously as we make it sometimes. And the things that are serious, like we'll be able to, like it will still feel important to us the next day. Is that making sense? Like sometimes I think, like for me personally, I get so caught up in something like my feelings right then and there. And sometimes you just need like a day to go by where you feel like, oh, that wasn't as intense as I thought it was. I just needed to sleep, or I just needed to take some time, and now I feel better about it. That's the week. I hope you guys have the best week. Leave down in the comments below what you want to chat about next week. I hope that moms, parents, that gave you some advice. If you want to add on to anything I had to say, leave it down below. We can all learn together. This could be like a building community of us just growing in the places that we're at in life. If you're a future wanting to be parent, maybe you have some advice for us. Okay, I love you. Give me gifts.